Do you really take your own life decisions, or does someone else manipulate your mind? And if you are still under the illusion that you cannot be controlled, then you can skip this video. Nothing is in your control, and this is what you have been made to believe. Think of all the times someone convinced you to do something you didn't even realize you were doing. Was it really your decision, or did someone cleverly sow a seed in your mind, and you nurtured it, allowed it to blossom, and easily came under its control? You think that this thought is yours, but you don't even realize that you have been easily controlled. If you think you've always done things the way you want, you're living under a delusion. The truth is bitter. The world is full of puppets and their operators. If you are not one of those operators, then believe me, you are a puppet yourself. But there is a big difference between those who control and those who are controlled. A Sanchalak, that is, a manipulator, never gives direct orders. They make others do things according to their wishes without making them realize it. A manipulator never lets his victim realize that he is being controlled. A manipulator always hides his commands, meaning what he wants the other person to do. He creates emotional outbursts in his victim, makes him believe that whatever he is doing is his own thought. He cleverly traps him in his words with a slight smile. Remember that moment when your mind suddenly changed and you couldn't even understand how it happened. A thought that was planted inside you by someone else. An innocent-looking comment, a deliberate gesture. This is the real power, to turn people into pawns without any suspicion. But now the question is, what if you are the one who controls your victim? If this time it was not you who was being cheated, but the pawns were dancing to your tunes, then who would be the real player? You or him? Because in this game, the difference between winners and losers is very simple. A manipulator knows never to exert power. Rather, it is slowly sown in the mind of his victim. But the problem is that we have been taught wrong. We have been led to believe that manipulation means speaking loudly, exerting authority, and imposing our will on others. But the people who really run the world never need to raise their voice. They quietly make their move. True strategists get people to adopt their thinking in such a way that they feel it is their own thinking. And no one ever told you this. Manipulation is not a game of yelling or intimidation. It is not an attempt to convince anyone through logic or to force one's point of view. This is a psychological tactic where you lead people where you want them to go without them ever realizing you led them there. Now the question is, do you want to understand this game? Identify the right people. Don't try to manipulate everyone. Pay attention only to those who can truly become your victims. People who are easily influenced, who are lonely inside, and who need someone. But they never want to show that they really need anyone. You can make such people your victims, those who think they are taking their own decisions, but in reality, someone else needs to make these decisions for them. Reassure them that the idea is theirs. When people feel they are in control, they lose their desire to resist. If you want someone to listen to you, don't tell them directly. Slowly put the idea in their mind and explain the idea as slowly as you can so that they can believe what you say. That's all it takes to make them reach the conclusion you've already decided. This is the real game, to play, and also to make the other person believe that he himself won the game. The dark side of humans is that the human mind hates orders, but it loves its own thoughts. And if you play the game right, people will defend your plan as if it were their own. The biggest threat to maintaining control of something is not that people are protesting. Rather, the danger arises when these protesting people unite and get organized. Therefore, if you want to stop the protest, break it into small pieces so that people cannot come together and form a force. If a group unites against you, you will lose control. But if you can sow seeds of doubt, create small rifts, or incite them against each other, they will weaken themselves. And this is called divide and rule. But this alone is not enough. If you really want control, then you have to understand human emotions. Logic only influences thoughts, but emotions move people to action. No human being acts because of logic. He acts because he feels something. Now the real game begins. Every human being has some weakness or the other: fear, greed, insecurity, or ego. Identify what emotions drive each person and use those emotions to your advantage. Don't tell them what to do. Make them feel that it is important to do this. But now comes the most dangerous part. Playing with the minds of others has a price. If your game is caught, you will become an enemy. If you misuse this power again and again, one day someone else will learn your tricks and use them against you. Control is a weapon, and like every weapon, it can turn around and attack you. History is filled with manipulators who were deluded into thinking they were invincible until someone else learned to play it better than them. So the real question is not whether you can manipulate others or not. The real question is, are you willing to accept the consequences? Because once you cross that line, there is no going back. Now you understand that power is not in imposition, but in guidance. It is not about speaking loudly, but about getting others to speak for you. And this is the biggest paradox. The less you think you have control, the more you actually have everything under your control. The less control you show, the more control you actually have. The world is not run by those who shout the loudest, but by those who control others silently. For example, Ayano Koji, who portrays himself as innocent and stupid. Now the question is, will you remain a puppet forever, or will you learn to manipulate? But this is just the beginning. If you really want to master the art of influence, you have to go beyond that. You have to understand what most people never understand. People don't follow ideas, they follow emotions. The biggest weakness of people is their emotions. Remember any great movement or person in history that changed the direction of humanity. Now guess, how did they do it? Neither by perfect arguments, nor by irrefutable data. They used people's biggest weakness, and that is their emotions. Because when emotions get involved, logic makes no sense. Remember how many times you have seen people fighting for ideas that they themselves don't even understand properly. The ideas they fight for but never even question. This is because these thoughts are tied to their ego and their identity, and that is what is real. If you want to control someone, make your thoughts a part of their identity. People can change their minds, but changing your identity isn't easy. For example, make your thoughts feel connected to their existence, and you know what's closest to a human being's existence: his religion, his caste, and his God. No one wants to admit that they have been thinking wrong all their life. But if you influence someone to such an extent that that idea becomes their identity, they will defend it till their death. Not because you told them to, but because it gives them a reason to exist. And that's where the game becomes dangerous. This is not a simple matter. This is programming. To silently plant an idea in someone's mind without them knowing it was yours. And for this, you need three things. First, exposure. You cannot change someone's thinking in one go. Rather, you have to gradually put your thinking into their thinking. Second, repetition. Whatever is heard again and again begins to seem true. The human brain is inclined to accept repetition as truth. If you repeat an idea repeatedly, it gets deeply embedded in their minds. Third, emotional connection. People don't adopt ideas because they are logical. They embrace them because of the way they make them feel. If you can connect a thought to their fear, greed, pride, or insecurity, then that thought becomes their own. Now the question is not whether you can influence someone or not. Can you play this game so subtly that the other person never realizes that he is a puppet in your hands? The mind gradually begins to accept only that which is repeatedly presented to it. Things that people don't know create fear, but people tend to feel comfortable with what is familiar. Now let us understand some deep psychological patterns. People trust more those who listen to them rather than those who just talk. Why? Because the feeling of being heard creates a deeper connection. If you want to impress someone, let them speak for themselves. Most people yearn to be heard. If you give them this feeling, they will start considering you trustworthy. Fear is more powerful than reward. People fear loss more than reward. If you want to force someone to take action, don't tell them what they can achieve. Instead, tell them what they will lose if they don't listen to you. Exclusivity. People give more importance to things that are not accessible to everyone. If you want to make an idea special, make it limited and specific. If people feel that they are one of the few who know something that others do not, they will hold on to that idea even more tightly. You don't have to eliminate a group entirely. Just do this and they start fighting among themselves. Divide and rule is not just a strategy. This is psychology. If you can create suspicion, competition, and ego in a group, it will automatically become weak. This is the biggest illusion of human psychology. Even if you become an expert in all the rules of psychology and influence, even if you can force people to do what you want, you can never control one thing: human anarchy. It means human chaos. People don't always react the way you expect. Sometimes a simple feeling, a change in their life, or an inner awareness can erase all your control in an instant. And this is where the real question arises. Not just whether you can influence others or not. Rather, it is whether you are ready for what is coming next or not. How far are you willing to go? Or will you too fall into the same trap that all those players got caught in and destroyed themselves? Manipulation is easy to do, but it's not easy to control its effects. History is witness. How many puppets ultimately got caught in the same strings with which they made others dance? When one gets addicted to controlling others, that addiction itself becomes the biggest weakness. Your biggest enemy becomes the very techniques you used. Now, the ultimate question is not whether you can make an impact or not. The question is, do you want to learn how to control others, or do you want to live in the illusion that no one has ever influenced you?